Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from executeautomation.com, and today in this video we'll be talking about Storybook, which can be used for performing application development as well as for application testing. I'm not going to talk about anything related to development because in Execute Automation we talk about testing more. So I'm going to be focusing on the testing part of Storybook, which is going to be something that you can use to test the component in more and more robust and fast fashion. So you know that's something called as component testing, which you can do in Playwright and Cypress. The same thing you can do with the Storybook as well, but just that it's even more intuitive. You can do something like interactive test, and also you can do some visual testing, and you can use even Playwright to do the Storybook testing over here. So I'm going to show you everything in this particular video. So this is the Storybook website. As you can see over here, it tells you that using Storybook, you can build the UI components and pages in isolation. So especially if you're going to be building a big page, and if you're going to have multiple components in that particular page, which is obviously going to be there, then you can build each and every components in isolation than in that particular page itself, so that you can do a specific test, or maybe you can do exclusive or extensive test on that particular component instead of testing it everything on that particular page. That is the whole idea over here. And for the testing part, which I'm talking about, is the one that I'm very interested in. As you can see over here, they have got something called as component test over here, and you can see that it's running over here, the interaction test. You can do that much easily with the Storybook. And similarly, you can also do visual testing over here, which is going to compare the visual changes of the particular page, the space changes and everything. You can easily compare it over here. You can also do the documentation of a particular component over here, and you can tell you that this particular component is specifically used for this operation. If you're going to be working in an enterprise-based application, you know that the user interface is so important, especially in the e-commerce website. If you're going to have multiple different pages over there, and you're going to have a same component which is going to be used across multiple pages, component testing is going to be very handy and very useful, because you know that if you test the component very well, then you can ensure that that component is going to work across the entire application. Well, as that said, I'm going to quickly show you a demo of what we are going to be talking about today, so that you get a glimpse of what we are going to be doing, so that we can follow along from there while we start building the component test itself. So I have already built a Storybook based test over here for my testing, and I'm going to quickly show you how that particular test is going to look like. So for instance, this particular application is going to have a login page, which is going to be very super simple. It's going to perform the username and password entry, which is going to look something like this. And we are going to be testing this particular interface to see if everything works fine or not. In a classical way of our testing with Playwright or Selenium or Cypress, what we do is we try to enter the username and password and click the login button, which is going to take us to the next page. That's called as the end-to-end testing. That's what we always do. But if you wanted to test if that particular component is really working, for instance, if you don't enter the username and if you just enter the password and if you hit the login button, you are going to get an error here in the username component telling the username is required. That is the component level of testing. And similarly, if you remove the password and if you try to see, don't enter anything, it's going to tell you that there is a password is required. And if you click the remember me, it's going to perform an event on the backend. And similarly, if you don't click the remember me, there is going to be something else going to happen there. So all these testing we have to do on these three components. Similarly, the login button is going to be another component that we need to test it as well. So if you want to test all these components in isolation, instead of testing it in the end-to-end functionality, which is going to be Playwright in our case, or Cypress in our case, then it is going to be very hard, because you have to do every single thing. And the most important problem that we have with the end-to-end test with Playwright or Cypress or Selenium is it is going to be very slow, because you have to launch the browser and then you have to set up everything and then you run the test on that particular UI. Instead, the component test is going to make your life more simpler. I'll tell you what I really mean about that. For instance, if I'm going to be testing about remember me checked, so if I just click that, you see that the remember me button is being checked and it just executed something behind the scene. Did you see that? Even like it just executed for me over there. So if I try to run it again, you see that it's entering the username and then it is entering the password, and it's going to click the remember me checkbox, and then it is going to click the button, and then I'm verifying if I have got the text form submitted and the user has clicked the remembered me. So these are all happening in a fraction of a second, as you can see over there. So if I just go and click that one more time, it is going to just execute that for me like that. See that? It's just in a blink of a second. And similarly, the same thing is going to happen for another scenario where what if I don't click that checkbox, then I see this particular message. So that's another test that I can do. And similarly, I can see or test what happens if there is a missing password entry. I can do that. Similarly for the missing username. So all these things, I can test it immediately with the component test. And that's exactly what we're going to be testing in this particular video. So hope you got the idea about the component test. So let's discuss about that in this particular video. So the first thing which I'm going to do it for writing the Storybook testing is going to be Storybook initializations. So basically in this particular project, I have to initialize everything related to the Storybook. So the best way to do it is using the Storybook init. I'm telling you how to do that. So if you just go to the Storybook init, something like that. So you see that install Storybook. This is the website which comes in, and this is the one that I'm talking about. So just do this npx storybook at latest init. This will install the required dependencies and also set up the necessary script to build the Storybook. It adds the default Storybook configurations, adds some boilerplate stories for you to get started with, and also set up the telemetry to improve the Storybook. So all these things are going to be done over here with just this particular command. And I'm going to just stick with that one because it's very straightforward. So I'm just going to go and open the terminal over there. And I'm just going to hit enter. So this way, the Storybook is going to be added for us in this particular project. And you see that it is doing all these magics for me over there. That's it. So once it is added, you can see that the Storybook is already starting up for me, and it's running in the port number 6006. That's the default port where the Storybook launches. I was going to tell you there is a new front-end workshop, whatever it is. It's going to be helpful for development testing and all those things. So it's going to show you a simple code, like a scaffolding code, which can be helpful for you to work with. So you see that there is an interactive story playground that's going to be explaining you like how you can work with the storybooks and things of that nature. So you can also create a story from here. If you just go and hit that, it's going to create the stories for you. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see that this is the Storybook UI, which is going to be running for you along with your application, to be honest. So now you can see that, hey, Karthik, we have added the Storybook. So how it's going to look in our project? So you see that this is the one, the .storybook folder and the stories folder are newly added for us over there. So these are the two new folder which was not there before in this project, but now it's there over there. So this stories folder is going to be responsible for holding all the things that you're seeing, like the button, header, and page. So these are the different stories. Similarly, you can see there is this stories file which starts with a button.stories.ts, which means it's a stories for your component. Similarly, there is this button.tsx, which is the actual component that you're trying to test. And similarly, there is this header stories.ts, which is the stories file, but this is the component, the header.tsx, which is the component that you're trying to test for. So that's all sitting over here in this particular stories. And there is this configure.mdx file, which is responsible for doing some add-on configurations that you wanted to do, especially for the storybooks. Those are something a bit more advanced, which I'm not going to touch in this particular video. But well, as that said, we are going to see how we can test our components over here. But before I actually show the component itself, let me just stop this entire Storybook which is currently running, and I will quickly show you how the application is going to look like. So I'm going to just do npm run dev and hit enter. It is going to run the application in the localhost 3000. This is the actual application that we are trying to test. This is the application under test. And this is exactly the same thing which I just showed you on the Storybook as well. So you see that if I enter the username as admin and if I enter the password as whatever, it's going to tell me that that's the user. Welcome back. And similarly, if you're going to say the username as maybe Karthik, and if you enter any password there, and if you hit login, it's going to say welcome back, Karthik. That's what it is going to be doing for you. So this is the component that we are trying to test. This is the application that we are trying to test, but that is the component that I'm very much focused on to test today. And because this component or maybe this page is written as an index.tsx file, which is like the entire component, and the next page is all written in this same file over here. And because there are a few more components apart from just the login component over there, because as you can see in this particular component, we also have got a greetings component. So for instance, if I just enter something and if I hit enter, this is a greetings component that we have got, and there is a header component as well. So I wanted to isolate them all like a separate component so that we can also write the test in a better fashion. That's what the Storybook team also tell, that you can write every single component of your application in isolation while you build the application. That's what I'm going to do over here. So basically, I'm just going to go and paste a code which I have already written. So these are the components that I have written over there, like head component, greetings component, and we also have got the login form component. So these are the three components I have got, and I also need to change the index.tsx file a bit. Let me just copy the code which I have already written, and I'm gonna paste that over there. That's all. That's the only changes I'm gonna make. But other than that, the application is gonna just behave quite fine if I'm not wrong. So let's say if I go to the localhost 3000, you see that the UI has shrinked a bit, but the functionality is gonna remain exactly the same. So if I just enter Karthik, you see that that's gonna just work fine. That's what it is. That's what we are gonna basically be testing in the Storybook. So now you may ask, like, Karthik, how should I get started with the Storybook? Because there is some scaffolding code over here for the button.tsx file, but maybe, the button.story.ts file, but maybe it doesn't really make quite a lot of different sense. I'm just gonna do everything from the scratch so that you can understand things more better. So I'm gonna create a new file over here. I'm gonna call this as login form. Make sure that while you write any stories, it should match the component name so that you can always relate that, okay, this is the story which is specific for that particular component. That's what I'm trying to do over here. So login form dot stories dot ts file, and we're writing in the TypeScript language, so it's just ts. That's what we have to do over there. And once we have it, we are then going to start importing things over here. So I'm going to say import type. So I'm going to basically import two types from the @storybook of the React. That's what I'm going to do over there. And what types that I'm going to be importing is going to be something like meta, and I'm going to say story obj. And then I'm going to do the importing of the actual component, which is nothing but our login form component. So I'm going to do this login form from, and I'm going to say // components and slash of login form. So this way I can now import the login form for me. So that's the first part that we have to do. And then we need to start writing the Storybook test itself. And not for you to write the Storybook test, because if you're going to be new altogether and if you wanted to read through more documentation about the storybooks, you can just go to this link, like writing Storybook stories. Just go and search in the Google. There is a link like writing stories. This is the first link that you will always get in Google. And you will see that they have got the details like how you can write the stories and what is the best practices that we need to follow while writing the test. The first thing that we need to always do is that we need to create the stories file name with the name of the component and the stories.ts or tsx file, whatever that is. And then we need to import the type meta, which is the one which we just did right now, the meta. And we also need the story object. I will tell you why we require that. And then the type that we need. And then we also need this meta. So basically, all I'm going to do it is const of meta of type a login form. And then we are just going to do this part over here, right? We just have to stop this tab 9 because it's going to keep on giving me all this information. There we go. And now over here, I'm just going to say, what is the type that I'm trying to write the code for? So basically, I'm going to say component, and the component which I'm trying to automate is going to be the login form component. That is the one thing that I need to add over here for the meta. And that is going to tell me that this is the primary component of my story that I'm trying to write the stories for. And I can also give a title if I really wanted to. So I can just say title probably as a login form testing or whatever. Maybe just login form should be fine. So that's the one thing which I have to do. And then I also need to export this meta, export default meta over there. That's all. And now I actually need to create the actual story itself. So these are the first initialization of our component. And now I need to create the actual story. So for that, I'm just going to say type of story as the story object of type of meta. So basically this is the type of the component that I'm trying to wrap as the story object so that I can now start writing the story itself. So I'm just gonna say, okay, export const of default as story without any argument. So this is the props which we are gonna pass into that particular React component. I'm not gonna pass any of the argument over here. So I'm just gonna leave this as it is over there. So this is the only thing which I need to do over here. And now starting this, I can start writing the code. So I'm gonna say default dot, and there is this new method, or maybe there is a method called as play method. So this is the function that I was showing you, which is going to be executing on the user interface for you. This is the place where you're going to be doing like a component test really. So I'm going to say play. And within this play, I'm going to be writing a function which is going to wrap all the canvas element, which is going to be performing the UI or component test operation for us. So I'm going to say async of canvas element, and now over here on this particular block we are going to start writing the code itself. But now before I start writing the code with the canvas over here, I also need to import few more types which can make my testing more better. So if you know, there is a library called as testing library, which is very famous among the community. That's what is being used by the Storybook as well. So this is the testing library .com, which is this one, and this is the library which is being used within the Storybook as well, which is going to be helpful for you to perform the user interface testing. So you can see that they have got quite a lot of different frameworks over here for the React, like what are the different testing libraries that they can use. And similarly within this testing library, you can use something like Playwright, or maybe not Playwright, let's say Cypress. Over there you see that they have got the Cypress add-on for the testing library, and similarly they have got a different libraries for the Puppeteer and things of that nature. And the same is being used, the raw testing library is being used in the Storybook as well. And the way you can actually do it is using this import. So I'm going to just say import of at storybook/test. So this is the package which has got all the different libraries just required for you to perform the UI operation. And some of them are something like this. So you can do the mock testing, mock context, and similarly you can do user events. You can do expect, which is the assertion library, and we can do like find all by alt text, find all by placeholder, find by text, find by title. See that all these operations, something which you can do on the user interface, everything is there on this particular Storybook/test package. So I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be including some packages I really require for my component testing, which I'm going to show you right now. One is the within, another one is the user event, another one is the expect and screen and wait for. So all these are something which I really require for my testing over here. And now with this particular package being added, now I can just do like that. So I'm going to say const of canvas, and I'm going to say is equal to within, which is the library which I just added on the top. I'm going to say canvas element, which I'm passing in. So this is the canvas element which is going to come or which is going to be passed for the play function. And over here I can just say certain operation. So I'm going to say await of canvas dot find by test ID. If you know the test ID of your user interface which you are working with, you can pass that as well, which is nothing but the local host of, let's say, if I just gonna comment this code, and I'm gonna say the npm script, which is gonna be this one. So if I just run this application over here, which is on the local host of 3000. So let me open a Chrome browser, and if I just right click and do an inspect of the element over here, you see that this element has got an ID of the username and the name of the username. So you can also pass the, you can do something like await canvas.find element by test ID over there. And then you can pass the test ID is gonna be something like username. So you can do that over here. So that's going to be the operation that you're going to be doing. So once you find this element, you can then perform an operation. But how do I perform an operation on this particular text over there? So if you see, there is something called as a user event that I have added in the storybook. I can call that as well. So I'm going to say await of the user event, this one, and then I can now perform an operation like click or clear or copy, cut, double click, whatever that I wanted to do. And the one is I wanted to do is going to be the type operation for this particular element. So you see that now I have got the element which I'm trying to work with. I can do that, and now I can pass the element that I'm trying to perform an operation, which is going to be the test typing operation, and I'm going to say probably admin, right, over there. That's what I wanted to type this time. So now that is the first operation I have written in my storybook over here for my component test. So I'm going to save this just one single line which I have written, maybe 2 lines. And now let me try to see if I can able to run the storybook test. So over here on the particular editor that you have got, the in VS Code, you see that there is something called as npm script. So if you just go and check that, you're going to see this particular operation, this particular options over there. You can see there is something called a storybook dev-p of 6006. This is coming from the package.json file, the scripts block. So that's what I'm going to be running over here. So once I do a run, you see that the storybook is going to run this time. And now you see that there is something called as a login form, which is this one, guys. We have just added that login form. That's what is coming over here as the display text. And now you see that we have got a default of the username and password because we are exporting a default constant. That's the reason why it's showing us at like default over there. So if I change it to maybe remember me as the variable, I'm going to replace that. If I save this, you see that now the text has changed from the default to remember me. That's happening because we just made a change over there. Let me just stop this entire thing. Let me run the storybook one more time. You should see that everything's just gonna work fine. You see that now we have the remember me over there, which is great. And you also notice that there is something happening on the interaction side. What is really happening there? You see that there is some execution happened over there and it just failed because it tells me that there is an expected container to be of an element, but a document or a document fragment got undefined. So which means something has gone wrong within our execution over here. So I think it may be because of the way that we are passing in the canvas. Oh, look at that. The parameter is not quite right because it should be canvas element like this one. You see that the C is small error, but I have just passed it as capital error. So that's the problem that we have got. So make sure that you pass the correct parameter there. If not, it's not going to work. And I'm going to save this. But even if I save this one, it is just going to fail because we have used the find by test ID as the username. So test ID is nothing but test data - test ID is the one that we need to use over there. But what we have used is the actual ID of our application. So that's not correct as well. So now if I try to save this code and if I just go and see what's really happening, you see that now the undefined is gone for this particular within a block, but it tells me that the data test ID is not there. So the way we can resolve this issue is we can just use like canvas dot and I'm going to say get by label text over here, and I'm going to say username like that, and then if I pass the admin, you see that it is just going to work fine. So that is how we try to do the operation on this particular UI. And the same thing I can do it for the password as well. So now you can see that we are actually performing a data entry operation on the user interface, pretty much like how we do in the end-to-end testing tool like Playwright or Cypress or Selenium. So that's what I'm trying to do over here as well. You see that I'm going to enter the password, but this time I'm going to enter on the password label. See that now it has entered, and every single time if I save it, immediately the data entry is going to happen. That is the power of the component test that we have got. And same thing I can do for the clicking the label as well. So let me just do that. So if I just save it, you see that the remembered me checkbox is being checked, and then I need to click the login operation. I've already written all this code behind the scene. That's the reason why all of these are just coming back pretty immediately. So yeah, that's just how it's gonna just work. But by text of the login is not gonna work because I'm just gonna use the get by role for at least for the for this particular button clicking operation, and I'm gonna say button, and I'm gonna give a name as the login. So I'm gonna save this. And it's just going to work, and you see that now the form has been submitted. So basically it has performed a click operation there until here. If you just see that, maybe until here it has clicked, and now it was going to click the login button operation, and immediately you're going to get a text saying form submitted, user has clicked the remember me there. And if I don't do this remember me click, see that form submitted without a remember me. So that is what the data entry, what data click operation is going to happen. The data entry operation is happening for me there, which is quite cool. So that is already happening for me over there. But now we are also getting an error here. It says that this might cause a false positive scenario because there is one unhandled error while running the play function. I was trying to figure out what is really going on behind the scene, but I remember I realized that there is this test.dangerously ignore unhandled exception needs to be somehow ignored. And that's what you need to be doing. After some Googling, I remember we have to do that. So all you have to do it is we just need to add a parameter there like this. And within this parameter, we have got a test parameter, just this one. And over here, we have got the ignore, what is that? A dangerous, and I'm gonna set this to true. So if I do it right now, you see that that error is completely gone because that error is not going to throw up right now. That is what we have to do over here. So now you got the idea like how I'm going to be writing this particular component test for me each and every single time. We can also do a wait operation if I wanted to. For instance, if I want to wait for this particular element to appear, I can do that as well. So hope you got the idea like how this component test needs to be written. So if everything is clear, I'm going to quickly show you my existing code that I have written before in this particular screen so that you can see what I'm trying to do over here. So that is what I'm trying to do. See that I'm trying to enter the username, password, click the remember me there, and then I'm gonna click the login button, and then that is going to be checking if that particular value exists for me or not, which is great. So I can also do an assertions over there. And similarly, I'm going to do for don't remember me checked operation as well. And that's exactly what this particular code is going to be doing. And similarly, I can check for the missing password. And similarly, I can check for the missing username. So I can test around 5 different operation or 4 different operation immediately with the component test without sacrificing the performance, because it is so easy that I can do all of these together immediately over here without writing even a single penalty or without hitting a single penalty on the performance tool. That is the power of the component test using the Storybook, because now we can do all these things much easily with Storybook. And I hope you got the idea of how the Storybooks can make your life very easier to test these things so good, so faster, because all these interaction tests are running behind the scene every single time you see the component. Not only that, you can also document the component, and also you can use this component test from one single place, and you can collaborate with developers while you write the test. And not only that, you can run this in a CI/CD pipeline as well, which is also going to make life even more easier. I've really not talked to one more thing, which is the visual testing part yet. I'll be covering that in a different video, but if you're really interested on the particular video, please let me know in the comments below. We can discuss about that as well. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.